Life as we know it has changed. Even though our plans, hopes, and dreams were placed on hold, this game called life is still being played. There is no timeout, halftime, or final whistle. It's changing, growing, and evolving, and so are you. It's not about being able to fulfill your dreams right now. It's about how hard you are willing to work to make them come true. And although we are apart, we are still playing a part together. Don't let the fear of missing the goal keep you from playing the game. So don't stop. Play on.
Hi, my name is Victor Burton. I'm the chairperson of Glenville Celtic Football Club. I've been a player at this club in my junior ranks and then grew up and then went away, did some other things, came back to the club as the club secretary and then moved to be the chairman of the club. And I'm very proud to be a member of Glenville Celtic Football Club. And I just want to say that we've been involved with the Engen Knockout Challenge since 2009. So that gives you 11 years that we've been hosting this tournament. And it makes me very proud to say that we've seen the development of players in this region. We've seen players coming through the ranks and we've seen players being spotted at this prestigious tournament. And the impact that this tournament has even had on our region and our club itself, it's huge and it's immense, and I want to say thank you to Engen for their contribution and their input in this, because it has made a big difference to my club, our players in our region and in our LFA. So we're going to talk about the 2020 season, where we've had no on-field football, but we'll rather have online knockout challenge. As we all know that in 2020, COVID-19 came along and it was lockdown, and so all sport and even our football knockout challenge was cancelled and put on hold. Now this tournament grows from strength to strength, and the commitment from Engen to continue on the online platforms has really moved us, and it's a new challenge. It's something new that we're looking forward to. And as a host club, Glenville Celtic, we are also going to host a webinar. And I'll just give you briefly what this webinar is all about. The webinar that we'll be hosting, it's actually termed Locker Room Talks. And the one that Glenville Celtic will be hosting will be spearheaded by Daine. I can say our very own Daine that has come play junior football, come through at Glenville Celtic. He has come back and plowed back into the club. And his partner will be Dlamini. And they will be talking about life beyond football. And these webinars and locker room talks are aimed at improving players as well as coaches and giving them insights into what happens then. We hope that the players will learn from this, because these tools are just used to empower players and coaches and set them up for life after football. So tune in. I'll be there, I'll be listening, and to hear what Daine Klate and Dlamini has got to say. Thanks very much. Keep on supporting Engen. That's the brand that keeps us going, and they are number one.
Good day, guys, and thank you for joining us for this fifth episode of the Engen Play On and the Engen Knockout Challenge webinars. We've been trying to keep you informed and entertained, even though we can't be together on the field of play this year because of the situation that's affecting the country. Of course, not just the country, but it's a global crisis when it comes to COVID-19. But we can never be grateful enough to Engen for making sure that we still have access to information and we can still bring in guests and we can still share knowledge and impart knowledge to you guys, even though we can't be together on the field of play. Hopefully next year, the situation will have improved and we can see you playing and showcasing your skills medals at this Engen Knockout Challenge. And today's session is hosted by Glenville Celtic, of course. They are wonderful hosts whenever we go to PE there, and it's good to know that they're still involved with the Engen Knockout Challenge. They've been involved with us for a number of years now, so it's a special one for Glenville, and we've got somebody that they will be able to associate with, of course, one of their own from PE that's going to join us for today's session. And today we are going to talk about life beyond playing, guys, and I think it's very important to take notes here. It's very important to pay attention here, because life does go on. There is life after your playing days. You might not be thinking about it now and think that all you want to do is just to play football, which is perfectly fine, but there's a lot more that goes with playing football, as you've seen in the past 4 episodes that we've shown you, that we've done for you, that there's so much more that goes with coming with the playing football. It's not just on the field, but we also do it off the field of play, and that's why these sessions are important, and that's why we're thankful to Engen for remaining committed to youth football here, and to make sure that we are still in touch even during this pandemic. So let me introduce my guest then today, our guest today. Make sure you take notes. You can ask questions throughout this session. We are going to be taking your questions and we're going to be answering them after this session. So please make sure that you pay close attention. But on my left, I've got Amanda Dlamini here. She has played for Banyana, of course. She's captain Banyana. Over 100 caps, Amanda, am I right, for Banyana? 104 if I remember correctly. She's played at the Olympic Games, also 2 Olympic Games, so she knows exactly what she's talking about. But also, most importantly, she's been able to make the transition from being a player to now moving to the broadcasting space, and there's so much more that she does besides broadcasting, and I think she'll be a perfect guest to talk to us about life beyond football. And another stalwart of the game here, Daine Klate. I'm sure if you've played in the Engen Knockout Challenge before, you would have seen him, especially if you've been in PE, you would have seen him. He's always there, always supporting the Engen Knockout Challenge. Had a very successful, long career, and he's going to talk to us about that longevity and how to sustain your career even after your playing days. So let me welcome my guests. Welcome Amanda, and welcome Daine, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Then I think I'll start with you, as somebody who's been familiar, who's very familiar with this project, who's been with us throughout the Engen Knockout Challenge and the Champ of Champs. Why is it important to have these youth tournaments? Why is it important to make sure that these boys gather and they get used to tournament football, but not only just football, but they also learn about life outside the field?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think to Engen, I have to take my hat off Engen. Every year you see the tournament growing and more talent coming through, and the boys love it, being part of it for a number of years as well. I think even with this initiative they're taking now, they're not stopping. It's fantastic to see the sustainability that's been happening. And I think a tournament like this is important. The ambience around the tournament, I love it.
Yeah.
Because of the way the fields are set up, and everybody, if you drive past an Engen tournament, it just looks like everybody just wants to be part of it. And especially for the players, once that ambience is there, it brings about a fantastic feeling for them, and we've seen a lot of success stories coming from this Engen tournament.
Yes, a whole lot, and we're going to keep telling you about them throughout these episodes that we have. So many players have come through this Engen Knockout Challenge, and they've become superstars now. They've become players that play overseas, and that's why we say that your journey starts here. Amanda, your journey is starting here with us, and the journey of women's football also starts here with us at Engen. I've seen you on social media. You've been very active. I've been hearing you on the radio also talking about the women's football element of this Engen Knockout Challenge. You're very happy with that. Why is it important to also incorporate the women's game?
Thank you so much, Tabi. So I think, it's 2020 now, and riding on some of the success stories that we've had in women's football over the years, I think it was something quite inevitable that was supposed to be happening, because I do feel that big corporates like Engen play such an important role. Yes, they do have their own people that they hire, but they have kids as well. So giving opportunities equally in the office space environment, but also off the pitch, where they can give these kids, I think, a platform to finally express themselves like the guys. So I think making our debut year this time around, I think the success stories of Banyana qualifying for the World Cup, first time ever, we need to have more visibility. We need to see more of the Banyana girls on TV, so that the young girls that we are now trying to groom at grassroots development, they see their role models, because they need to know that there's a reference. When you start at grassroots development, there's obviously a path where you can follow, or there's an individual that you can actually idolize or find yourself a role model, so you can finally succeed. So it's very important, in as much as the contribution of a conveyor belt, to get to senior team level, we need to make sure that from grassroots development we are following the right structures. So jumping on the bandwagon of a tournament like this that has existed for almost 18 years, they have the blueprint, and of course they can guide the young girls to finally have a step in the right direction as well.
So we're very excited to have women's football as part of the Engen Knockout Challenge, guys. We can't wait to see you on the field of play, and we're going to be there to cheer you on. We're going to be there to support you and make sure that you showcase your best talent, because you never know who's watching. We've seen some scouts, the national team coaches always come to this tournament just to look for talent. So this is your chance to show them what you can do. But today we're talking about life beyond football, and I think the reason that both guests are here today is because they've been able to transition beyond their playing days. And maybe I'll start with you, Amanda. You are now in broadcasting, and there's so much more that you are doing. But how has the transition been for you from being a player to what you're doing now? I know you're still playing, obviously, but how has the transition been? Because you seem to be able to find the balance.
Yeah, well, to the eye, it looks like I've found the balance, but it's been absolutely a very hard journey. I think to a certain extent, very lonely. And I think those are some of the things that we have to share with the kids to know that the transition is not as smooth. I think while you're still playing, there's a lot of people, Daine, as well, who are always saying, no, our doors are always open. Once you retire, you can always knock on my door, you'll find something. But it never really works out that way. So you still have to make sure that you push as hard. And I think for me, the biggest thing was to try and identify, first and foremost, what it is that I want to do. Who am I? Which way would I best describe myself? What are my values? What are my principles? And I think it was easy for me to navigate them, to say, I love kids, I love working with kids. I want to have a foundation, I want to do this. So I think it was quite easy for me to easily identify what it is that speaks to me. And I think it really helps also for the young kids to be able to witness what it is or identify what it is that they want to do.
And when do you start thinking about life beyond football, Dane? Because some players will tell us, I just want to play football. That's all I want to do. I want to play here. I want to play for Bafana. I want to go overseas. Don't tell me about anything else. Football is my life. Is it possible that football can be your life, or do you even have to start while you're playing to think about life beyond football?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it was important. I go back to when I was at the School of Excellence. Going to school, for example. School teaches life skills. You can beat around the bush about having life skill workshops, and school is life skills. Because I always say this, you go to school, the teacher gives you homework, there's a task, you go home, you do your homework, you come back, you've done your task. That's life skills. It's being able to do what you are told to do. That's life skills, and the discipline comes from doing those little tasks. So you have to think about it while you're still in school, about your life after football, because of the discipline goes, it's forever. And the one thing that I've always been, and I've actually had a conversation with my parents last night and about my career and where I'm headed and what I'm doing currently. And my parents said to me, the one thing that I've always done was I've always been disciplined in my decision making. If I say I'm going to do one thing, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to stick to doing it. So that aspect is important for you to take right through your career. And once you're done playing, to stay relevant becomes important. So what you have done while you're playing, for me, I've won everything. So that in itself is relevant, but it has to carry on. Like Amanda said, it's not going to fall in your lap. You still have to go out there, and you still have to go knock on doors, and you still have to go and sell yourself again. Like when I grew up at the School of Excellence, for example, it's always uncertain. You don't know if you're going to make it or if you're not going to make it, but you believe that in what you are doing is the right way. And I always say, if there's a path, your path is already set out. You just have to follow it, but you have to do it the right way. So you can't really pinpoint and say 10 years when I'm done playing, that's what I'm going to do. When I signed at Fitz, for example, that was my second last contract. Already I started thinking, hey, 29 years old, getting 30. That's when I started realizing, wait a minute, it's getting real now, because that talk of when you're into it, I'll get there, and that's when plans start. And I think I always wanted to go back to PE, and obviously finished my career in PE, and then went into coaching. But the other things was being in PE is making a difference in PE, inspiring, giving hope, starting the foundation. And those are the things that I couldn't do while I was playing. And now I'm done playing, and I've got a little bit of relevance, and people saw what I did. So now it's time I can give back as well to the communities where I grew up. So that was the one thing that was always my desire that I couldn't fulfill while I was playing because of the busy lifestyle, traveling to Africa with pirates. It becomes hectic, but once it slows down, it really slows down, and you kind of have to keep yourself relevant as much as you can. But education is important. I'm busy doing my coaching education because it doesn't mean that I've played the game for so long and I've won so many things that I'm able to just go and transition into coaching and just be a coach. The first thing they teach you at the coaching course is that being a player and being a coach is two completely different things. So yeah, you have to really think about what you want after football while you are still playing. You always have to plan accordingly. Like for the Engen boys, you're coming to the Engen tournament. You're playing to be seen, to be spotted, to go on and have a career in football. It's the same with life. While you are playing, think about it. Think about what you want to do when you are done, and start planning while you are still playing, so that when the transition comes, because it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. I don't think there's any footballer that has had an easy transition. I think Amanda can attest to that. There's a time comes when things look like, oh, no one is interested in me anymore, all of a sudden now, but you just have to keep knocking and you have to keep carrying on. It's the same with football. If it's not working out for you, you don't get signed from the Engen tournament. It doesn't stop there. You carry on. The Engen tournament is basically a stepping stone. So your career is a stepping stone to what you want to do next at all times.
Okay, so there you have it. Your career is a stepping stone to whatever you want to do next. So you gotta start taking it seriously, guys, and you gotta start using these lessons and these life tools that you've been given from a very young age. And I think it can only help you going forward. Amanda, you mentioned that you've got a foundation, and your foundation focuses on girls. I'm sure you're trying to impart your knowledge and share what you've learned throughout your career, but a younger Amanda Dlamini, what maybe would you have liked to have been told, or to have known while you were still playing or while you were still growing up, that maybe you didn't get it, and that's now what you're trying to share with these young girls?
To be honest, I think it really helped that I had possibly structures around me in terms of role models, where I had coaches, my mom as well. And I think for a young child at that point in time, that's your source probably of reference. And I think for me then, it just meant that I just needed to focus on what I needed to do. But I think kids need to be given an opportunity to express themselves. And it's very important that then we set guidelines. I think for me, it was important that I tried to have a vision board at a very young age to say, okay, this is what I want to do. I write everything down. How am I going to get it? These are the tools I can use. Probably have the right role model, maybe my mom or another soccer star. And I think sometimes we always encourage kids that don't look at this kind of player, but it's always a choice because there might be something that you want to learn from them. So I think for me, having that vision board, having role models around me, equipping myself to know that this is what I wanted to do. I remember coming back from the first Olympic Games. I told my mom... 2012, yes. I told my mom, I actually want to start a foundation. I don't know how to go about it, but it's something that I want to do. And my mom says, but what is a foundation? What do you want to do? I just jumped on the laptop, did some research because I had to equip myself, get the right knowledge, follow the right structures to register everything. And I think from there onwards, I found my passion, because then I had to hold myself accountable and responsible for this foundation. I had to lead by example, which means I'm not perfect, but if it is that I want to do something, I have to lead by example. So I think that for me, starting the foundation was the best thing for me, because everything that I did, everything that I'd say in the media, I have to hold myself accountable, because I'm responsible for another generation that's younger than me. So I think therefore I sort of knew that that's the space that I wanted to explore. And I think when you make that transition over, people will always be drawn to you because of the story that you carry. Therefore, the structures that you build around yourself is automatically going to attract attention. And for me, it wasn't to get attention, but to really try and do something to encourage the youth. So I think for me, it really helped that I had a good structure around me.
And we actually have one of your mentors as part of this Engen Knockout Challenge program, Mary Jane Sokela. And I'm sure you'll hear from her, you've heard from her. She speaks highly about you when you came to her and you lived with her. And she says you had this ambition and you really wanted to go far. And you talk about having a vision board. But did you really believe it, that you can actually make it?
I believed in myself. I didn't know how far I was going to go, but because I had the vision within me, then I believed that at least I'll do something. It didn't have to be on a bigger scale. I think just coming back from an Olympic game, coming back from a tournament or a friendly match or whatever it is, going back home and spending some time with the girls and just playing in the streets, that for me was that little part of me trying to do something and encourage people that I'm still, at the same level, I'm still the same person. It also taught me humility. So I think who Mary Jane as well, she knows because she once found my black book, of which I always wrote everything that I wanted to achieve. And funny enough, I found it at the beginning of this year, before lockdown.
After all those years?
After all those years, I found it when I was at home, and everything that I wrote down came to pass exactly as it was. And I think, like I say, the discipline that you have is a promise for yourself, for your career. So can you imagine you write something in your black book or in your vision board and you don't get it? It's okay, but it will constantly be reminded to say, I need to tick that one off as well. So I think for me, my journey was really guided by those things where I was just focusing on what I needed to do. And I mean, she was a great mentor as well. I think having a manager that was housing me, going through high school, that could see my transition as a teenager, trying to handle all and balance those things. So it's important that we have role models. Our mothers need to come to the party, dads also need to come to the party and really try and help us grow these young people.
So maybe that's where we can start then with the vision board. Guys, write down your goals there, what you want to achieve, and see if what you can tick off and what you can really achieve. It's a great start. It's not going to cost you anything, just pen and paper there, and you can start making notes of that. And also, let's not forget to sanitize so that we can be together on the field of play next year. Even though we are in level 1 at the moment, it's still important to respect the government protocol and sanitize and make sure that you wear your masks, please, and also share this information with everybody around you. It's still important. Let's not take things easy. Let's make sure that we still respect protocol, and that's why, and hopefully we can see you on the field of play next year. Daine, you had such a long, successful career, but maybe can you share with the players what are some of the common mistakes that players make, or maybe that you made at a very young age and that maybe you didn't realize, and in the long run you think maybe you could have done this better? What advice can you give to the players?
I think in football, for me, not everybody's gonna make it, and it's a topic where I'm gonna put it to you because I'm pretty sure you also wanted to be a footballer, right? What did you do when did you realize that football is not gonna work for you? And being the person that you are now, the boys at Glen will always see you program director. How do they do what you've become, for example? Because not everybody's gonna make it in football. So I'll answer your question, but I want to give them the opportunity to learn from you. That everybody wants to be a footballer, but not everybody's going to make it. Now, what did you do? When did you decide that, I don't think I'm going to make it anymore. I'll go into this. How did you go about it?
Yes, and that's true actually. I mean, like everybody else, I also wanted to play football, but I realized at a very young age, probably at the age of being in the Engen Knockout Challenge, I realized that the boys much better than me when it came to football. But I love sports so much that I actually still wanted to get involved in sport and still be in sport. And that's why I actually went to go study journalism, because I knew that it was a way that's going to keep me in sport. It was going to keep me close to the players, whether it's football or whether it's cricket. I actually even wanted to study physiotherapy, but medicine science said, no, you can't study physiotherapy, because I thought I'll be the guy that runs around with the team and works with the team. But I knew that, look, I still want to be involved in sport, involved in the game. Let me find something else that will make sure that I'm involved involved in the game. And that's why we actually have these sessions. And I'm glad you asked that, you raised that point, because it might sound harsh that not everybody's going to make it, but not everybody will make it. But there's so many other opportunities within the sporting industry where you can still get involved in sport. And we have these sessions about life skills. We have these sessions about life beyond football. We have these sessions about other careers within sport. And I'm sure you'll have access to all these sessions throughout these webinars. And that's what we talk about and we focus. We don't want to say you're not good enough to make it, but we just want to prepare you for what happens if you don't make it as a football career. So yeah, may I realized probably at 16 that maybe it's not a God-given talent like everybody else.
Yeah, I think it's important because you asked the question. I don't think I have any regrets. I think I left P at a very, very early age at 14 years old. A lot of sacrifices to move away from P to a place like Johannesburg, come to the School of Excellence, and being in school there, I really focused on school. I wanted to study accounting because I was very, very good at accounting. Grade 8, when I moved to high school, Galvindale High School, the first year I did accounting, I got 100% in accounting, and I just loved it. I could sit for hours with my accounting. If it wasn't soccer, I could sit. The only homework I wanted to do was accounting. Sometimes I'd go to school and not having finished my other work because I had to do the general ledger. I had to go from the general ledger to balance sheets, and but I loved it so much, and to a certain extent, when I was at Supersport, I actually enrolled at Varsity College, and I did a little short course in financial accounting, and just because I wanted to equip myself for life after football. It was always, and the one thing the mistake I probably made was not following through. I think the 16 years that I played in the PSL, I could have taken 10 out of that 16 years and completed a degree, and which I didn't do. So if you have a chance to do it, if you have a passion towards something else besides football, yes, football has brought me success. It's given me life. It's given me a name, but I still feel that, I could have had a degree by now. At the age I am now, 35 years old, I could have had a degree over, they allow you to do it over 10 years, for example, right? And maybe that is the thing, that if you have a passion, for something, don't give it up because of football. Maybe that's the mistake I made. Maybe I could have been an auditor now. Maybe I could have just walked into any club and said, I'll do all the PSL, go work at the PSL, and end up doing the books of the PSL. So yeah, that's maybe the one thing that, if you want to go study business management, sports management, you said physiotherapy, those are things that you can do while playing. We go away to Africa. I remember in Africa, we train in the morning, the rest of the day we did nothing. Why couldn't I sit with the books and study? And do correspondence and submit my things when it was time to submit it. Now that I'm doing my coaching, I'm finding it interesting and I think it's time consuming, but you're using your time effectively. No one has ever achieved anything in life by just sitting around and doing nothing. You always constantly have to keep yourself busy. You can't wake up at 10 o'clock every day and expect life to give you pleasures and reward you. It doesn't work like that. You have to get up and work at it and work at it and keep working at it. And that's what I did throughout my career. Even today, I still say to myself, I can't be sleeping till 8 o'clock. Even though I don't have a job, but I'm studying, I have to keep myself busy. You have to constantly learn, read, get up, read, help my kids, with whatever they need help from school. And I love to keep myself busy, because that way you feel that you're waking up for a purpose. But there's nothing worse than waking up and you don't have a purpose.
And is it possible to do both? Is it possible to study and still play professional football?
I think it definitely is. I think it's all in the mind. For me, like I'm saying, if I think back to the camps that we had so much time at camp, sitting around, taking naps and, watching TV and, that little 2 hours there per day that you could have squeezed in 2 hours out of the 6 hours you had of doing nothing. You could have squeezed in 2 hours to do a chapter, for example. So those are the things that I think maybe I could have done better in that side of life. Yes, the rewards in football was fantastic. You earn good money. You need to look after your money as well. But I still feel that I could have had a degree. And like I'm saying, my advice would be, while you are playing, if you have a passion for anything else in life, like I had for accounting, I could have had my degree by now.
And just on that, whose responsibility is it to does the club need to convince you to go and study, or can you just take the onus upon yourself and say, look, I want to study, is there an opportunity for me? Do you go to the club and say, can you help me with something like this, or do you have to wait for the club to come and say, why don't you go and study?
The clubs have been amazing. when it comes to that part of life. If you approach any club, the clubs I was at, Super Sport United, I was at Boston College, they paid for my sports management degree. Myself, Simoni Sogaka, Richard Ranchi, we did a IT for 6 months and then we started traveling into Africa. The club paid for it. You know, then I went to varsity college while I was at Pirates. The club paid for it. You know, so if you approach the club and say to them, I want to start, the clubs are they're very for that. You know, for education, the clubs always, any company, if you go to any company as well, I mean, in a normal job, you know, if you say to your company you want to study, the company will pay for it. You know, so it's your responsibility as an individual to want to do it. And if you want to do it, I'm pretty sure whatever club or whatever environment you find yourself in, they'll be willing to support you, and they'll even be willing to help you financially. You know, you don't even have to use your own money. That's how much opportunities there is when you're in good environments.
So maybe that's something we didn't know, guys, that you can actually approach the club that you play for and ask them if they can help you with your education, they can help you with whatever that you want to do. So don't be shy when you get into these clubs, when you sign these contracts, make sure you make use of all the resources that are available to you. Amanda, you've been nodding with Daine. Do you agree? Do you agree with what he's saying? Do you agree with the educational element that maybe there's so much free time in football that you can even use it wisely?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think with me as well, to a certain extent, when I just started my career in the Banyana setup, it was really difficult traveling Africa, having to concentrate the number of hours that you spend in transit at the airports. So sometimes it takes a toll on you. But I think, like Daine says, if there's something that you really want to pursue, you try by all means to carry your books and try and do something. I did my assignments, most of my assignments in camp, because we spend so much time on the road and at hotels. And it was something that we had to fight for. And I think while you were actually explaining, Daine, I thought maybe it should be part of policies in the country to say clubs should be able to have those, setups for the players. Because sometimes there's a child opuma emakaya that probably doesn't have access to further their education, and mind you, they're restricted because they can't pursue their careers. But if they know that if I join a club, then I know that I've got that accessibility to sports bursary maybe. And I think for me it ties in nicely because I had an exact opportunity where from high school in Durban I immediately applied to UJ. I didn't know that they had sports bursaries at UJ. So immediately when I got there, they saw my talents. They gave me a sports bursary. So throughout my years at tertiary, I studied for free. And I don't think kids are aware of that. There are opportunities out there. And I think the nice thing is that also in varsities, football is being played now. We're encouraged to refer kids to play varsity football because it's on TV. It's a better platform to be scouted. So I always advise kids that is the quickest route probably to a professional contract, because if you study, you get to varsity, you play the varsity games, you're exposed, you're on TV, there's coaches who are always looking for young talent. And that's the quickest way to get to a professional club. I mean, there's Abogola Mlambo, all these guys, Makaringe, Pirates as well. We played with them at varsity level, but they're in bigger clubs now. So I think they must also understand, if they want to further their studies, they still can. There are opportunities out there, but they don't fall in your lap. You have to make an effort to try and unlock those opportunities.
Okay. And we've got obviously our women's under 20s that are joining us as part of the Engen Knockout Challenge. And I think maybe the first question that people want to know when it comes to women's football, or when the players want to know, is that can one really make a career out of women's football? Is it possible to make a career, or do you always need something to fall back on?
Look, I think for the longest of times, I've always said you need something to fall back on. And I think now we need to change the mindset to say it's something that you do for yourself. I think football is a very short career thing. If you get an injury in your first contract, God forbid, but if you get an injury, a career-ending injury, you're still now having to think, what am I going to do? It's something that you have to do for yourself. Luckily enough, then you can fall back on it, but it's something that you need to do for yourself. But it's not easy, Tabi, so it's really, really not easy. But hey, I feel like Daine said, if it is that you pursue something, it's very important that you chase after it.
So it is possible, and we're seeing in recent times that some of our Banyana players are moving overseas. They all over Europe, in Spain, in France, and there are opportunities now. The world is being opened up for all of us to play. So you can really go far with your football, guys, if you do take it seriously and if you pay attention to some of the lessons that we are sharing with you today. Don't forget to tag us, by the way, when you make your comments. We are on social media. It's engen.sa on Instagram. It's engen_soccer on Facebook, and also on Twitter. Also use the hashtags that you will be seeing on the screens that we'll be sharing with you to make sure that we spread these messages as wide as possible. It's not only for us here as part of the Engen Knockout Challenge. These lessons you must also go share with your mates when you go back home, when you go back to your communities. Let's make sure that we just share this knowledge, because I think that's important. Daine, I know you've made us a presentation and you talk about sustaining your career and all of that, and there are other points that you want to highlight from your presentation. But can we talk about finances? I know it's a sensitive subject. You did mention that it can be a rewarding career, but maybe when it comes to finances, do we talk enough about finances, or is it a sensitive topic when it comes to football and sport?
I think we don't talk enough about it. I think for me personally as well, growing up, we're not taught. Nobody tells us how to go about investing, for example. You go to school and you don't get told what to do with your money, how to do it. A bond, for example, we go buy a car and we celebrate. You're putting yourself in debt, for example, and the interest rates on a car is compared to a property. And again, if you buy a property, it's still not an investment until the property is paid up. So we are being told, and I probably made that mistake. I bought the property when I was 20 years old at Supersport, when I got a good contract at 20. You buy a property, you think you're doing the right thing, and I did the right thing at the time, but I didn't know how it works, but just that whole thing around, you need to buy property, you need to invest in property. Investing in property means that all your money must go into that property until you don't owe on that property anymore. So we make the mistake of buying a property and thinking that's it,
it's done.
And a lot of the times we talk about a conversation of generational wealth. I've got kids. My whole aim is I don't want my kids to live month to month like our parents grew up like that. For whatever reasons back in the day, life got taken away from them with those type of apartheid rules and all those type of things. So we, in our culture, we are so far behind when it comes to policies and investments, and where other people have had head starts. So I think it's a generation where we need to change that, and start having generational wealth from people from townships, from disadvantaged backgrounds, and that's the aim. I saw an advert the other day of this guy and his dad. I can't remember what the advert is about, but it's basically about he used to give money to his dad, and his dad demanded that money every month, demanded that money, and he used to get angry. He always taking my money. Meanwhile, his dad was investing his money, and when his dad passed on, there was a big inheritance. So, having a last will, for example, I'll go back to one of the players that I played with. I'm not going to mention his name. I don't want to drop names, obviously, but he didn't have a last will. And now you pass away, and then what happens to your assets? You don't have life insurance. You don't have those things are not in place. So the education around finance, when I was a young player, when those type of people used to come, we used to it's boring. And then later on in life you realize, geez man, we should listen to those people, because actually that's important part of life. You have to have a last will, you have to have life insurance, because you can't leave your family behind with nothing. If anything happens to me today or tomorrow, I know that I'm covered, my family is covered. Whatever debt we had will be covered because there's life insurance in place. And those type of conversations, I don't think we have enough with younger players. Like I'm saying, the financial rewards is fantastic in football. When you win cups, when you win league titles, the bonuses, and working with that money and investing and saving is important. But also living the now. You have to enjoy the money. I drove a nice car because I wanted to. It was a dream growing up. So it doesn't say. I'm not saying don't live your dream. Of course, live your dream, but make sure you have things in place for life after football, because you can't save all your money and not live now. You know, anything can happen to anybody any day.
So the money that you make now can actually work for you after football.
It can work after football. I think to a certain extent in South Africa, if we compare ourselves to Europe, we can't really compare ourselves to Europe, because in Europe it's millions.
Mhm.
We talk about earning millions a month. In South Africa, we don't earn millions a month, maybe a million a year. But we can make it work. It's easier when you play in Europe, obviously, because of the amount of money you make to sustain your life after football. But you have to, like boxing clever. You know, you live the now.
Yeah.
Don't deprive yourself of living the moment as well.
And enjoying your hard work.
And enjoying
the
the
rewards
hard
of your hard work.
Yes, but always have at the back of your mind that I'm sorted there. Should anything happen to me, my family's sorted, the car will be taken care of, the bond, the house will be taken care of, you know, and that's just basically for me the biggest point is the now versus the future. Are you protected? Are you enjoying now? Are you living now? And are you making plans with it? It's possible. You can do that within your means. So don't go living beyond your means now and not putting away. I'm saying instead of driving the latest GTI, rather go for the 1.1 at the beginning of your career. Rather a 1 liter car. Rather have a VW up or something like that. You know, instead of having a GTI at the age of 21, because sometimes I feel it's more about status.
Being seen.
And being seen, and there is a lot of examples, you know, and I mean, I've enjoyed, at one stage I drove a C63, but I could afford it because I signed a big contract at Wits, you know, it's the back end of my career. But at that time I already had 3 properties, for example. You know, I had a last will, I've had policies for my kids, you know, every year my kids' school fees get paid up from the onset, you know, so those are the type of things that I took care of, you know, and beyond football as well, the policies are there. You need to continuously use them, you know. So I'm saying my biggest lesson was don't deprive yourself of living the now and just put away for the future, but living the now responsibly so that you know that tomorrow you're still gonna have.
Okay. I hope we are not boring you, and you don't want to be Daine Klate if we're boring you 10 years from now. And remember and think about this session and wish that you had listened to this session, because that's exactly what he just said. And maybe when these opportunities came or the sessions came for him, he didn't take them seriously, and that's why now we're having these sessions for you, so that you can at least be equipped with the right skills going forward at a very young age. And on that note, the players will say, but me, I've got an agent, the agent looks after my life. Is that possible? Does the agent decide where the direction of your life will go? And do you have to rely on your agent, or once again, is it up to you at the end of the day?
I don't know, Amanda. What do you? For me, I think the onus is on us.
Yeah.
I think the onus is on us as an individual first and foremost. The agent can only do so much. You know, at the end of the day, the agents do try and advise players. I know a lot of agents that have advised players properly, but the players don't want to take their advice. They still want to do their own things. They still want to manage their own money. And like I'm saying, it's more of an ignorant thing than anything else. You know, so don't be ignorant about it. You know, think about it, listen, and I think sometimes also the explanations is a bit difficult.
Yeah.
People don't understand really what it's about when someone comes and pitches a policy to me. You know, to us, we think, this one wants to eat our money. You know, whereas they actually have good intentions for us. I think it's the onus is on the willingness.
Yeah.
The willingness, you as a soccer player, as an individual, to want to learn. There's nothing worse than not wanting to do something and being forced to doing something. So open yourself up to learning about finances and investments and policies. You know, funeral policy, for example. You know, ask how does it work? What benefits does it? If I should make an example, if I should pass away, what happens? You know, and they will explain to you in point form. They'll explain this is what will happen. That amount of money will go to your family, and people will understand better. You know, so the explanation of the policies as well, I think, and from agent side, I think it needs to be simplified. You know, so that people can understand in their own language, for example, and very, very basic. You know, okay, I die today, tomorrow my family will get 100,000. You know, it's like that.
basically.
And if you don't understand now, you can also ask right now. Send your questions in. What is a policy? Why is a policy important? If you really think that you don't understand or you don't follow what we're saying, don't be scared to ask, and we can simplify it for you. You wanted to add there, Amanda?
Yes, Tabis. I think although we're in the same space,
Yeah.
it's almost like two completely different worlds where women's football is concerned. Because at least for the guys, they've got huge amounts that need to be negotiated, and therefore you probably need an agent. But we spoke about the principles, we spoke about what you stand for, and I think as a player, that's why Daine is saying that the major responsibility is with you to decide what you want to do. I think an agent therefore represents you, the decision that you're taking, or the final decision that you take. But for women's football, we hardly even have agents.
You're on your own.
Because there's no money to negotiate about. And I think those are some of the facts. Uguti, now you end up missing opportunities because you don't have someone to negotiate for you. You end up selling yourself short because people are taking advantage of you because you don't know how to negotiate for yourself. Therefore, it ties in with the conversation in saying, open yourself up into learning these things if it is that it's in front of you. And unfortunately for us, we can't even save some of the money because we're earning under 5,000 Rand, and you still need to buy your cosmetics, you still need to take some money home, you still need to get some money for tertiary and everything. How do you invest that money? Because then the tabloids tomorrow will say, Amanda Dlamini with an illustrious career of 105 caps maybe or something, and she has nothing. She's broke. But people don't understand that there's no money being injected in women's football. Therefore, how do I save that little bit of money? But there are ways people try to explain to us to say, if you can save this much amount, you can still get or it will, but it doesn't really happen. And therefore, it's important then again to have a representative who can say, actually, maybe you can go and speak at a school and motivate for an X amount of money. Then you start making your way and earning a little bit more extra money until you're able to save some money. But I think the biggest danger is that when these young boys, maybe even girls, because now our world also in women's football has just shot up and there's so many opportunities. When we get those amounts of money, we always want to feed or satisfy that feeling or the desires that we've had as young kids. So therefore we start spending, we want to buy this, and unfortunately we can never fulfill all the desires, because when you reach a different bracket of a salary, there's a new desire that you need to feed because now you can afford it. And I think therefore it means you have to live within your means. Daine said it, you have to live within your means. Whether your salary is increasing or not, you'll enjoy the finer things in life. But for girls especially, we need a lot more representation when it comes to the girls so that they can be guided in making solid decisions moving forward.
It's a very good point that you're making. Let's talk now about maybe another point or another word that we need to simplify is a brand. What is a brand? Because you are a brand now. Even while you're still playing now, you've made your mark outside the field of play. How would you describe what a brand is to our players that are watching us today?
Well, I probably wouldn't know what a brand is, but then I will express myself how maybe I then moved into the space of being a brand. And I think the biggest thing was the foundation for me that attracted a lot of attention, people wanting to know the stories. But also having a manager at that time, someone who I could share my vision with and be able to say, I can guide you into this kind of space. Maybe you might not have a manager, but you might have a friend, someone who is able to guide you, a school teacher, a mentor, like we're saying, we're classifying the role models as well. And I think I was lucky enough that we navigated those spaces. But also I knew what I wanted to do. But I feel the biggest break for me in creating that brand were the interviews that I conducted while I was still a player. And that's why I always say, you never know who's watching. So how you present yourself to the media, I think that was my audition to get a job as a soccer analyst, because I'd never had training. The training that I had was from the media training from camp at Banyana where our sponsors came in and said, we want to train you guys. We're actually preparing for a tournament, African Women Championships, and the qualifiers for the World Cup. And they said, we want to interview you guys because you are now playing qualifiers for Olympic Games. All these interviews from other countries are coming through, then you guys need to express yourself. because everyone is so shy. Footballers are always just so reserved. We don't like doing interviews. Guys, open yourself up to doing interviews, you know? So every time they try to teach us something, to say, what did you have for breakfast this morning? And then you say chips or oranges. And then they try and rectify and say, what I had for breakfast today is or was. So that's how you construct sentences in terms of responding to the interview. And I think that really helped, because I tried. I don't know what I was doing, so I'd be the only one that would raise my hand and like, okay, I'd like to try, you know. Little did I know that just that little bit of being brave, to say I want to try, because that's all it takes. You're trying. There's no wrong, there's no right when you're trying, but someone to really try and rectify those mistakes. So I'd raise my hand, Daine, and be like, I'll try almost 3 times. And then the next time they say, Amanda's been trying, can we have someone else? But little did I know that really helped me in terms of standing in front of the camera, responding the way I did. And therefore people were like, oh, so soccer players like doing interviews, or they can do. I'm like, guys, it's not that deep. It's just that we're very shy. But if it is that we're encouraged to step up and do something, then, and therefore I think my brand started coming alive. I got endorsements from some of the big sports brands, and that really helped as well in elevating my career. So the transition then from an athlete to broadcaster, already I had these things that I was accountable for. That meant if I'm representing a big brand like Engen, I can't be seen doing this and this and that. Not because it's Engen, but because I'm representing girls also. I'm representing guys that are still teenagers, maybe. So how it is that I live my life, I can exist as myself, yes, but there's a fine line when you're a brand ambassador, or you're associated to a brand. And I think for me, I've always kept that to say, I'm going to exist as myself, 100%, but I know that when it comes to work and the association of these brands, I need to represent them that way. So most of the reference, people don't come and look up for my Facebook to read my bio or to do this, but it's word of mouth. From the last interview that I did, or from the last client that I represented, I'm now being referred to the next. So every interview that you do, that is your audition or your CV to your next job. Every game that you play, that is your next contract for your next team. So I think players should understand that discipline that you have is your promise in making sure that you have a good career. So that's how I built my brand. It's just by interacting with people, being humble enough to say, I want to keep learning.
And as we wrap up, Daine, she mentioned discipline right at the end, and I was about to throw that one to you. I mean, how important is discipline now when you want to transition from life after football? Because we've known about your football career from a very young age. We've never had any bad stories about you. In fact, you're one of the few players where we knew your wife and kids while you were still playing. You were never shy to promote your family life. How important then is discipline when it comes to making yourself a brand and somebody that can have a relationship with these other corporates of these other companies?
Yeah, if I can make an example of Engen, you know, I fill up at Engen garages because e-bucks. They affiliated with e-bucks.
I do too.
And it gets clicks.
Yes,
you know, you get points.
Yes.
You know, so it's a brand,
Right.
and brands want to people and companies want to affiliate themselves with good brands. Now sometimes you see Engen garage, the petrol cleaners dance, and it's fun. You know, when you go to the first stop, and you know it's fun. I always stop at the Engen garage. I'm not saying this because I'm sitting here. I'm saying it because I experience it, and I do it. I do fill up at Engen garages. You know, so again, that discipline side, the brand, people like affiliating themselves to good things. They don't want negativity. They're not going to affiliate themselves to negative things. And there's been a lot of stories of footballers, and we've seen their career go down the drain because of the way they behave. And like Amanda said, interviews, I'm able to sit here today because I put my hand up whenever there's interviews at the clubs I played for, Pirates, Supersport, they would choose me because they know I like it, I'm into it. You know, you have to be into something, you know, and that's how you build your brand. That's how people want to associate themselves with you, because of they can see, oh, he's comfortable, he can talk, he speaks properly. You know, like Amanda said, interviews, I used to sit sometimes in camp and think to myself, okay, right, today we're playing, if we have the match, what am I going to say? You know, you start thinking about it. It's like visualizing the game. You visualize the game. If I get the ball on the left today, I want to put on the pinpoint cross. If I get a free kick, if it's on this side, what am I going to do? Which corner? Okay, I'm going to look at the keeper. You visualize before the actual match. So it's the same with interviews, Sometimes I prepare myself for the interviews, because there's nothing worse. I mean, you into radio journalism, and you've interviewed players or personalities where you get a one-word answer.
Yeah.
What do you think about the match? And they say, we're happy to win.
Yeah.
You're not selling yourself. You have to elaborate. Like Amanda said, the question, when you get a question, you first start by answering, by starting with the question and explaining and going further. And it's important. It's extremely important. Negativity, nobody wants to be involved with negativity. The wrong side of the media, you don't want to be there. I was fortunate enough to never ever be there on the front pages. My philosophy was back pages.
Ah,
That's a
good one. That's a good
we
one.
need to always be on the back pages. And I'm not an angel by any stretch of the imagination. I went clubbing, I went parties, and had the occasional drink here and there. But how you do it, when you do it, and who you're doing it with, it's extremely important. So you need to choose your friends and your acquaintances very, very carefully when you start making it in football. Because my friends, some of them would tell me, listen, Daine, no, you can't do that. You're training tomorrow. That's the people you want to associate yourself with. People that's going to add value to your brand and not devalue your brand.
Very important, and that's why he can sit here today and look like he can still get on the field of play, Daine Klate, because of the discipline. Amanda, finally, we've been mentioning it's the first time we have women's football as part of the Engen Knockout Challenge. What message would you like to send to our players out there, the women players that will be playing for the first time? How big an opportunity is this for them, or how would you like them to make use of this opportunity?
I mean, first of its kind, Tabiso, and we always cry out and say we don't get equal opportunities. And this time around, we don't have a corporate that says, no, we'll just include the girls only in the finals. They're taking us step by step through it all. And therefore, it will be suicide if it is that our girls don't really step up and take this opportunity. And I think people who should be held accountable are the coaches, the teachers, the parents as well, to sort of try and change those mindsets and try and encouraging the girls to come and play. But then also, once the girls are encouraged to come and play, give a good account of yourself. You representing your communities, representing your school, representing your parents even to a certain extent, and I mean a big brand like Engen. So for them to come back again next year and say we're rewarding the girls another tournament, or maybe 5-10 years down the line, it depends on the girls that start this year. So therefore they really need to show that we deserve this platform and that we want to exist in this space and make sure that the tournament continues to grow. So they need to be really sharp. We want to see some great skills, but also at the same time, I always say they need to have fun.
Okay, have fun, enjoy the game. Actually, Coach Peter Musumane, in one of our earlier webinars, actually mentioned how important it is for you to enjoy the game. And if you missed that, please go to our portals and make sure that you catch all those webinars. And we've spoken a lot about media also. There is a session also about media training, guys. It is a very, very important that you also pay attention and you make sure that if you've missed it, you make sure that you catch the one about media training. Is there anything I've missed, Daine, you want to add, or any message to our players out there?
No, I don't. I think the only message is I'm looking forward to the football next year when Engen comes back again. That's the one I'm looking forward to. Is actually the action. I'm pretty sure the boys feel the same. So good luck to all the boys. Difficult times at the moment, but we'll get through and we'll get back to playing. And I'm looking forward to the Engen knockout next year again.
Okay, it is time for us to take your questions now. Let's see who's been paying attention in this session here, and we'll get our panel and our guests to answer your questions. But make sure that you don't forget to follow us on social media. You don't forget to use our hashtags, and you spread the word that the Engen Knockout Challenge is going virtual this year, and we're trying to make sure that we still keep you informed and entertained, even though we are not on the field of play. We'll catch you for our next seminar, but right now we'll take your questions and we'll let our guests answer to some of the questions that you guys have asked us. But thank you for joining us. Thank you, Glenville. It's been wonderful to be with you. It's a pity we can't go to PE this year because that is, can I say, it's my favorite destination when it comes to catering. The food in PE is the best of the Engen Knockout Challenge. No pressure to anybody else, but hopefully we'll be there next year. Thanks, guys.